with them. All right, tell you what, we're ready to go now. I get to talk to the man of the minute. We're just going to make a very smooth transition. No need for a break. We're going to jump right into it. And of course, Mr. Haywood is in studio. I've had the opportunity to talk with him. We've met once or twice in the past, but never got an opportunity to sit down and really pick his brain. We get to do that now. So with that, I'm going to say good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Hey, it's great to be here.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for taking time out. I know last time we were scheduled to meet and talk, but you were busy. You're a busy man. You've been in business 40 plus years.
Yeah, well, I apologize for that. Sometime my great staff, we miscommunicated.
Yeah.
That's what happened that time. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to make it up.
Yeah. Now, of course, as I said, you've been a businessman. You know, I don't just consider the Gary businessman. You're a businessman. You serve throughout the region. I don't know how far your organization extends, but when you've been doing it as long as you do, I'm sure that you're not just limited to a certain radius, that you're all over the place. So why don't you give the people who might not be familiar a little bit of your background? Give us your history of where you were born, how you came up, and what got you into this business.
First of all, to answer your just question,
yeah.
Have business, will travel.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not putting any limits on you.
And we've been blessed to be in business for going on 40 years now. I started off in my father's agency.
Nice.
And my dad was one of the first black insurance agents in the city of Gary.
Right.
So I grew up under his tutelage.
Yeah.
And we used to truly go after local business.
Right.
Because at that time, black agents were limited in terms of getting contracts.
I could imagine.
A whole lot has changed since then. In fact, I remember the days with my father.
Yeah.
And being here brings back memories because this is one of the first major accounts that we landed together.
What, the Gary Schools?
Gary Community School Corporation.
Nice, nice.
And we still do business with them. Not as much as we like, but as things change on the political side, we may have some more openings.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. You know, you touched on a couple of things that are actually kind of in theme with the show. I know you kind of came in this morning. I was doing one of my little rants, but I want to kind of go and speak to this before we get into some other things about the insurance industry, where it was and where we are right now, because I think that there's something very unique going on here that I want to speak to, and that is that you know, we've been talking dads. This is Dad Month on this show, and we're talking about men and the relationships that men have with their children. And one of the things that we've talked about even before we got to Dad Month, that is about our demographic specifically, kind of being more merchant class than just consumer. And by that, I mean going out here, and I guess people call it entrepreneurial and things like that. But in addition to that, I think one of the things that I just heard you point out as it relates to what your dad saw and what you told me in between breaks about what you're doing is you're also talking about wealth. Because it's one thing to start a business, and we know a lot of people have done that. There are a lot of African Americans who start businesses or have practices and professions, but they don't necessarily turn over to the kids. And that's, you know, through no fault of their own. A lot of times children grow up and they have their own interests. They want to go out here and do their own things and make their own mark. But what happens is a lot of things get lost, and we never really have that continuance of wealth. And so as you tell me that your dad had the business, and then here you are, a young, smart guy, and you're walking under your father's tutelage, and you learn in the business, and he's feeling so positive, I can assume, to look and see his son eating and drinking this whole thing that he loves, and now he's passing it to you, and you have the ability to pass it to your son and daughter. Explain how that works, because as I said before, that's one of the things in our community that we haven't really mastered yet, and that is kind of prosperity, which is really the real thing about wealth. A lot of us are doing very well for ourselves. We're making some cash, we're doing good, but when it comes down to wealth, that's a totally different thing, and that's usually generational.
Well, first of all, it's important to show the opportunity.
Yes.
With my dad, I saw the opportunity, and I saw the potential of something growing into a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And the same way with my children. I did not force them. I laid out the opportunity, and if you want to run with this, then we have some things that we can accomplish together. I let them be independent.
Right.
As a result of that, their independent actions and thoughts business and continues
Yeah.
to help our business grow.
Yeah.
So you have to plant the seed, but leave it open for them to determine. Now, if you can show success
Yeah.
while they're there, if they're smart children, and we all want our children to be smart, they'll pick up the ball and run with it.
And it's just like you ended up, you know, if you do it the right way, like you're outlining, you're going to wake up and you've got ready-made business partners. You know what I mean? That are right here, that have as much invested in the business.
See, in our business, and you may have touched on this earlier, it's a big thing about transition.
Yeah.
I won't always be around.
Yeah.
So
No.
what happens to the business?
Yeah.
When you're not around?
Thank you. And that's what I think, you know, and I think you're a great example of showing that, you know, and I had the opportunity, if you don't mind me bringing him up, I talking to a guy that I very much admire, Powers, Mr. Powers.
Yes.
And, you know, you look at that family and that organization, and everybody did not want to go into the family business. There are a couple that did, and they're absolutely all in, but there are a couple that, you know, want to go do some other things. And when you think about entities like yours and the Powers business, which are such a brand in our community, you don't want to just see them die one day because there's nobody to take them over, or they get kind of sold because, you know, somebody wants to come and absorb it.
Yeah, the Powers are a source of inspiration
Yes.
to us. We've had a good business relationship with the Powers for
Yeah.
a number of years, and we've always admired how they have done their business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate them very much. Now let's switch gears into your kind of your wheelhouse, and that, of course, is insurance. And I think the day you were supposed to come on, I was telling this story about, you know, I remember growing up, you know, I'm dating myself. I'm still a young man. But I do remember growing up, and after I got out of elementary school or kindergarten, I went to Washington. So I go over to go over to Lane Street, my grandparents stayed. And I can always remember it would be like one day because my grandmother would stay home from work or my grandfather would take me there and the insurance man was coming. And, you know, this was back in the day when you guys would come up or you would be walking down the street because you had 3 or 4 clients on the block and you had your briefcases and your suit and you would be invited into the home. There was always coffee or tea ready for you when you came in there, maybe some cookies. And then you would take care of business with the family and then move on to the next. It was such a very intimate neighborhood thing. And of course, we've evolved to where it is now, where a lot of you guys got offices, there's apps, there's all this kind of high-tech ways of doing things online. Just kind of talk about, you know, the evolution of the insurance guy, because I'm sure you came into it and you watched your dad. He was that guy that parked at the end of the block and walked. He probably had 3 or 4 houses on that street, if any.
It brings back fond
Great
memories, because what you're talking about are the industrial or debit life insurance.
Yeah, that guy.
Yes. And they used to walk around with a thick briefcase, and they always had thick-soled wingship tubes.
Absolutely.
On.
Yeah.
And they were a forerunner. I never will forget, and this was maybe 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to speak to some Howard students that were in Chicago.
I see what's going on here.
And they were talking about insurance careers.
Yeah.
And they all talked about careers, but none of them really thought about, okay, let's get into the aspect of providing the insurance program or product. In other words, being a salesperson.
Right.
Being a professional salesperson. And I said to them, now you probably look at that as the guy running around on a route with thick-soled wingship shoes.
Right.
And collecting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went over to the window. We were in the CNA building, skyscraper. It's called Big Red over in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, look out this window. What do you see? Okay. You see those cars down there? Yeah. You see those boats out there?
Yeah.
You see the buildings around?
Yeah.
You see all those people? This is what an insurance agent has the opportunity to do.
Insure every one of them.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to control your own destiny.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like having the freedom to do that and develop your own business and becoming an entrepreneur.
No, and you know what? You are absolutely right, and I'm sure that when you simplified it like that for those people, they kind of got it immediately what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember being down in Alabama. I was at Tuskegee for a while, and I remember hearing about an insurance agency that actually was the first black, if I'm correct, or it had something to do with Africa.
A.G. Gaston?
Yes, yeah, down there. And,
legend.
And you know, I remember talking to somebody who was about to go work for them. And, you know, I remember asking a very basic thing because, of course, I was paying car insurance and things like that. But I wanted to kind of know what insurance was. I want you to kind of sit here and explain that. I know it sounds very simplistic, like a question, but I think for a lot of us out here, we know that we have to have insurance. We know that having insurance is a good thing. In particular, you better, you know, when you need it, you're glad you have it. But I don't think a lot of us sometimes sit and appreciate the anthology of it. Because I remember real quick, I'll tell you about a guy one time who was very kind of cynical. This was one of my Caucasian older neighbors who drove trucks when I lived down in Alabama, but I would say he's more of a libertarian, but he used to go into his rants about insurance. He used to go back to prohibition and the loan sharking and things like that. He was like, they legalized it, protection and things like that. But then, of course, as it evolved, as I said, it's better that we have it. It protects us from a lot of liabilities and things like that. But I want you, a professional, go out here and give us the layman terms or layman definition of what insurance actually is and does.
At its very best, it's simply a risk transfer vehicle. In other words, instead of having to come out of your pocket for a large loss, insurance, by sharing the risk through actuaries with a number of people out there that are paying insurance premium.
Right.
Well, your premium can pay for a loss that's 10, 20, 50, 100 times.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Now, if you happen to be a very wealthy individual or institution, okay, you can self-insure.
Yeah.
But even those individuals, they look at, okay, well, where is my money better used?
Right.
Can I put it in some type of investment, Wall Street, something? Why just have it there to pay out a loss that for pennies on the dollar, I can pay for it through an insurance premium?
Interesting. I've never heard it explained. That was just absolutely genius right there, the way you kind of put it out there. And so for that young person, let's just say, as you said, who's thinking about going into insurance and they want to kind of, you know, they see these people who have their own billboards and they have their own agencies, whether it be with Allstate and things like that, because I've got a couple of friends who were in insurance, Kimball, and guys like that. What would you say to them? Because I'm sure they would ask, how do I go out here and start an insurance practice? What is the profitability? What is the business model for an insurance agency? How does it work on that end?
Well, you can actually, from certain schools, get training.
Yeah.
I belong to an organization called NIA, National African American Insurance Association.
Yeah.
And I'm a former national chairman of that organization.
Really?
And so is my daughter. And what we did...
I'm talking to a big shot.
Now, we've been fortunate. What we did was establish interns with certain organizations that affiliate with the insurance industry. So people, it's called Inquest, where people can start learning about insurance early. And then once they start learning how it works, then they can become interns and get involved in developing skills to be in the business. And see, there are ways you can choose. You can choose to be in, and I always suggest, well, go and get involved with a business first. Learn it before you decide to put out your own shingle.
Right, so basically associate yourself, go work about 4 or 5 years and really see the ins and outs, make some relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another good training source, you mentioned State Farm and Allstate.
Right.
They're good organizations. They're what we call in the industry captive agents. By that, they only work for Allstate or State Farm or American Family Farm Bureau.
Yes.
Now, I happen to be an independent.
Exactly. You can move.
Right, which means I can contract with various insurance.
Now, is that more appealing in particular to your commercial clients? Because it would seem to me, if I was out here looking for an insurance, you've got more flexibility because you can kind of tailor make a policy for me based off of your knowledge. And as you said, you're not kind of tied to one specific paradigm. Yeah.
Exactly. Because with commercial insurance, there's a different aspect of it.
Yeah.
And particularly when you get to large risks.
Yeah.
Large complex risks.
Right.
We've been fortunate to be involved with a number of large complex risks.
Nice.
And simply a company like State Farm and Allstate, which are great for the smaller risks, particularly automobile,
right,
particularly homeowners,
yes,
and some small businesses.
Yeah.
They work well for those. But for the more complicated risks, like for instance, the Scary Community Corporation, that's not in their closet.
Absolutely. We're talking Mr. Haywood III. He is just absolutely amazing. I could pick his brain all day. I also want to ask you, we were talking about commercial real estate, and I want to ask you this question, because I think about this news story that we're going to talk about a little later on locally, in which, there was an apartment complex in Maryville that has undergone some, some condemnation or what have you over, the quality of it. It's been violating code violations and all this kind of stuff. Is one of the more challenging things going out here is commercial real estate for buildings. Because I'll give you an example. Like, I remember talking with the current administration, and I've kind of had conversations on this show, and I'm very opinionated, but I have my opinion about the genesis. I've talked with many people on the council and things like that. And I've always tried to tell the audience that my position is not that I don't have any sentimentality for it and don't appreciate why it was built, but it has somewhat become an albatross. And one of the things that you have to have is liability insurance. You can't have a big building like that sitting in the middle of your downtown that during the winter gets icicles, ice on the ground, and all these kind of structural things that could happen because it's not being used and not have insurance. It would just be absolutely suicidal almost. And so is that a big thing that people or businesses have to really kind of deal with when they're getting started? I mean, obviously the business license, operating expenses, but what about the insurance? I would think that absolutely has to be part of the big picture.
Insurance, along with a sound risk management program.
Yeah.
See, a good risk management program would not only predict, but it would prevent. And also, should there be a claim, you target what happened, so less chance of it happening again. See, our focus, as I told you earlier, insurance is only a risk transfer vehicle.
Right.
Well, put yourself in a situation where you don't need to use the funds of a risk transfer.
I like that.
That's the purpose of a good risk management protocol. And that's what we stress with our clients. Yes, we're going to provide the insurance coverage, but any agent worth of salt can get right to a policy.
Yeah.
Okay, but why not work with you and develop safety programs?
Right.
Programs that keep your employees intact.
Yeah.
Programs that prevent mechanical breakdowns.
Right.
Or slip and falls on your property. You want to look at all that, which is enveloped in a sound risk management program. See, the idea behind that, if you don't have to use insurance, well, guess what?
What?
You're not going to lose downtime from operations.
I like that.
Because insurance, they'll come in.
Yeah.
And they'll make you whole, but what about the time you lost?
See, you're the guy that I want in my office and having this conversation with, because, I wanted to ask you this, being a guy inside the insurance agency, and of course we know that, nowadays we live in a very litigious society, so much so that every time you turn on the television, you see in the Learner or whoever, these attorneys who make you guys out to be the bad guys. They do. They make the industry, they make you. And so, how do you kind of deal with that? Because there is this parasitic aspect of attorneys that out there looking for the big score if they can catch any of you guys slipping, and they're promising big paydays and things like that. So does that weigh on you where sometimes you have to protect yourself and you can't necessarily pass on the savings that you want to the consumer Because you got to be aware of these guys that are floating around looking for you to slip up. And how do you deal with that? And what do you tell young prospective insurance guys?
Well, the attorneys, the legals, they're professionals.
Yeah.
Just like we are. They have to do a job.
Right.
Now, our job is, now I'm going to take you back to that loss you mentioned in Maryville.
Yes.
I was paying attention to that too.
Yeah.
How bad a shape that building was. Now, if it had insurance, then a good insurance company with a broker would be out there investigating that building.
Right.
And it would make the recommendations. Look, you need to do this.
Right.
To shore up this place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And if you don't shore up this place,
then I can't help you.
Yeah, we're off the list.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, because some people, they happen to be of the opinion that insurance companies are charitable organizations. That's the further thing from the truth.
Thank you.
No, they will provide to charity.
Yes.
But they're in this game to make money. And the only way they're going to make money is they insure enough places where they make more premium coming in
right.
than the losses or claims they have to pay out. So they're simply not going to insure a house on fire.
See, no, and I'm so glad that you said that, because a lot of us in the consumer market, as I said, with the narrative that's sometimes out here with these faces, because we don't always get to see the guy like you. We see the brand name. We'll see the big commercials during the Super Bowl and things like that. And we'll get the flyers and our pop-ups on our email. And so we tend to think that there is this faceless corporate entity, which is insurance. And their job is to just go out here and have us pay into this endless well of premiums that some of us may never claim. Yeah. And it's unfair that when we kind of need them or that they shouldn't pay out. And you're just saying, listen, we're a business and you have no idea, while you might not necessarily have filed a claim, we're dealing with stuff over here on the other end on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, look at what's happening in California.
Yes.
Two of the largest insurers, State Farm and Allstate, are pulling out.
They're pulling out. They're not doing it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that will open up the door for more independent
right.
agents.
Yeah.
That will get involved with the underwriting and also work with government. Okay, well, you got to do something to control these.
Yeah.
Wildfires.
So I know we got to kind of wrap this up, but I want to just ask you. And so you bring up a good point, and we definitely have to continue this conversation. It's so interesting. So I have been paying attention to that California situation. So if there's obviously when things are a vacuum, it's opportunity for people to kind of come in. But do you have to secure some serious financing if you're thinking about going out there? Because the reality is that you got wildfires now. You're getting possibilities of snow event. I mean, the weather is absolutely flipping crazy over in California. That's why these big names are out. It's just not cost effective. And so they have to bail or they're going to be in some serious financial trouble. So what would a new person have to do? What would they have to kind of take into account?
As a consumer?
Yes.
Well, if you're going to go a place like California
or Florida,
you have to take in consideration the lost expectations.
Yeah.
You don't go down there without preparation.
Right.
Because for one thing, the insurance, if you can get it, is going to be much higher.
Right.
So you don't go down there unless you're prepared.
Are you with government intervention as far as like if you move to Florida, DeSantis knows, guys, listen, you got to get flood insurance. You have to appreciate the risk that living down here in hurricane zones. Do you like the government kind of mandating those things?
The government has to step in, because if you don't have it and you are flooded out in a catastrophe, guess who ends up saving your house?
FEMA.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense.
It's risk management.
Absolutely.
It's prevention and predicting and prevention.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
Well, Mr. Haywood, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you don't mind, would you please, make a point of coming back in the future? And also, before you go, give the logistics out to your wonderful organization for people. I know you're busy. You probably don't even have space, but just for guys who just want to, or maybe there's some people out here who want to even intern and pick your brain, give us your logistics, where you are.
We're located in Miller, the Miller section of Gary, Indiana. We've been there for 25 years.
Yeah. Where?
650 South Lake Street.
Yeah.
Our telephone number is 219-938-5025.
You mean I pass you every day?
Of your company.
Every day.
Where you across from? Vibrations?
Not too far from there, but Century Bank.
Oh,
We're in that building.
oh, where since
The parking lot.
Yeah,
side.
I know where you are. You're on the side. Okay,
Right,
okay,
right.
all right. Well, there you go, man. I appreciate you very much. Once again, this has been absolutely a pleasure. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to your family. I think you're a great example of how we need to do it. You and of course the Powers, all of you all. And as far as kind of representing dads on Dad's Day, happy Father's Day.
Thank you for your time and effort, and I must give a shout out to my wonderful public relations person, Miss Chelsea Winnie.
Oh, absolutely.
She makes things happen for us.
Yeah, you know,
Yes.
that's how we do it. All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break when we come back.